My name's Edwina Guckian from Drumsna, and I'm a dancer, and I'm here today to tell you about the Straw Boys, the Mummers and the Wren Boys tradition in Ireland from years ago. Mummers tradition is an old tradition that is for the 12 days of Christmas, and the idea of the mummers is that people from the local area would all gather together, usually the men years ago, and they would dress up in costumes of straw and colourful clothing and tinsel. They would have drums and instruments like fifes, and they would walk the roads from house to house knocking on the doors, and the idea was to bring good luck to the families that they were calling to. And when they would knock on the door, they would call the people out to see them, and then if the family decided, then they would invite the mummers into their houses, and then the mummers then would perform a play. So it would involve music, song, dance and storytelling, but the play was quite specific, and it would involve different characters where there is a doctor, somebody passes away and the doctor has a magic potion and brings them back to life. So that was the mummers. Then there are the Straw Boys, and the Straw Boys are for all year round, for weddings and for wakes as well. Such was the tradition years ago that people would dance and play music when somebody passed away. So with the Straw Boys, they would be dressed completely in straw from head to toe. So I have some hats here as an example of the Straw Boys costume, and they would have different designs for their hats as well, all made from straw obviously, and they would use ribbons to decorate them. But you can see here with these hats there's different designs on the tops of them. So that's just one example here, or I have another one here where it's all plaited up and tied at the top, and you can see that the oats are still there and the seeds on the top of it as well. So quite easy to make once you have the straw itself. So with them then covering themselves, and the idea was that they were in disguise, that the hats would come completely down over their faces, and that on the rest of their body then would be colourful clothes, ribbons and straw, more straw if they had it, and they would cosú an tugan, like the turning of the hay ropes. They would use those as well and then wrap them around their wrists and their ankles. And the whole idea was that you wouldn't be recognised. And then they would go to the person's house that was after getting married. After they got married in the church, they would come back to the house just like this, and everybody would be having a party, and they'd knock on the door and they would sing and dance and play music and tell stories inside or outside for the bride and groom to wish them good luck for their life. And it was bad luck then if you didn't feed them or give them some drink or cross their palm with silver. So if you didn't do that, you weren't going to have any luck, and the Straw Boys might come outside then and take off their hats, and they'd throw them into a pile in your garden and set them on fire, or they would take them off and throw them up into the trees so that they would get stuck, so that when people were passing by then they'd know that you were going to have no luck and that you didn't pay the Straw Boys. But it was usually your neighbours or friends in the community that did this. I also saw a tradition with the Straw Boys in Fermanagh in Derry Lynn, where the Straw Boys would welcome the couple home from their honeymoon, and they would pick them up at the train station or the bus or the car, and they would carry the bride back over the threshold and march them back playing music and dance and have a big ceilidh outside, and all the neighbours would be waiting. But I've only seen that in Fermanagh, which is really nice. And the exact same then would apply to a wake. They would come and sing and dance and play music for the mourners, and wishing the person that had passed away the best of luck in their afterlife. So that's the Straw Boys. Then the last one we haven't covered is the Wren Boys, and the Wren Boys are for St. Stephen's Day, Lá an Drolín, and hence the Wren Boys, where they got their name. So they again would be dressed in disguise. They would wear hats like the straw hats here, or they might wear masks. I have seen some people who don't have straw also wear say like a tea towel or net curtains over their faces with holes cut out so that they could see. Some of the men might dress up as women and the women dress up as men. Lots of things like that, just totally to disguise themselves. My granddad used to do this, and he'd call to my house when we were little playing the fiddle as a mummer or as a Wren Boy, and I'd always know it was him because of the shoes he was wearing. So I told him that when I got older, so he started wearing different shoes then, so I wouldn't know it was him. But it's a lovely tradition and really great fun. And they would knock on your door, the Wren Boys, and they would say, the Wren, the king of all birds, on St. Stephen's Day got caught in the furze. So up with the kettle and down with the pan, and give us a penny to bury the Wren. And the idea comes from the Wren, and apparently there's lots of different stories, but apparently there was Irish people hiding from Cromwell's men, and the Wren was singing and gave away their location, and Cromwell's men then killed the Irish people. That's one of the stories that I've heard. So now the idea is that you would hunt the Wren, and you would capture it and kill it. But today now you'll see people going around maybe with like a fake Wren in a box or something like that. So it's there are 3 lovely traditions that are all very similar and all very, very old. They come from the pagan times and are not just significant to Ireland, they're across many different countries all across the world. One of the places that I've come across the mummers tradition that is still alive today and very much strong in the communities is Newfoundland. And they have the exact same costumes and the same idea of spreading good luck and music and song and dance. So today, to keep the tradition alive, there's lots of people across Leitrim doing this, lots of different groups, and some of the children that I teach here, teach dancing to, are also great musicians and singers and storytellers, and they all head off doing it as well. And really, if you tell them that, well, you'll get some money for it because it's bad luck if they don't give you some money, they're gone like lightning, delighted, comparing how much each gathered by the end of the day. So at the end of the Wren Boys on St. Stephen's Day, which seems to be the most popular, the Wren Boys would all gather together then for New Year's Eve and have the Wren Boys Ball or the Mummers Ball, and all the money they gathered they put together to have a huge party and celebrate. The tradition of the Straw Boys and the Wren Boys and the Mummers kind of died out over time, because years ago people would gather in each other's houses to sing and dance and play music, you know, just as a house party, or even just informally, you know, a rambling house where there might be a musician living here in this house, and people will say, oh, he's a great fella for playing tunes, we'll go over and visit him and catch up on the news and see what's happening. And it doesn't happen anymore. It's not the way, I suppose, socially. People go to the pubs or wherever it may be, or a concert or music classes, if that's where they'll go if they want to learn, compared to learning from each other in your houses years ago. And with that then the tradition of the Straw Boys and the Mummers kind of died out, because you wouldn't just call randomly to someone's house and knock on the door and expect to be brought in and playing music and dance. So it survived in rural areas in Ireland, and I think it's on the increase again now that people have become more aware of the tradition and how valuable it is to have this.
They will find it, I know sure enough, when fortune has come to my call. All the grass is green around the valley range, and the blue sky is over it all. But tones that are tender and tones that are gruff come whispering over the sea.
One of the projects that we're doing at the moment to keep this tradition alive and to use, I suppose, the spirit of the whole tradition and spread it amongst our community when we really need it the most right now. We're doing the modern day mummers. So myself and Fionnuala Maxwell, the singer from Anaduff, and Brian Mostyn, the accordion player from Carrick and Shannon, the 3 of us have gotten together and we dress up in these costumes. And during lockdown we contacted Meals on Wheels and resource centres and active age groups to see where there are people in their communities across Leitrim that would really appreciate somebody calling to them to give their spirits a lift. So we didn't tell them that we were calling, they just got word that somebody will be knocking on their door later and just to go out to the front door. And we called to 34 houses in Anaduff, Drumsna, Carrick and Shannon, Leitrim village across 1 week, and knocked on the door, and they came out and we sang and danced and played music and just talked, and they really appreciated it. It was lovely. It actually meant just as much to us performing as it did to them. So Creative Ireland have supported this project to go on further, and now for the month of October we'll be continuing this project across Leitrim.
That was great. I just, it brought me to life.
That was the intention though.
So I made these back in February. A lady from the Heritage Council came to work with me on it. It was my first time making them, and it was actually really easy. They look really complicated, but they're not complicated at all to make. You definitely need two people with you to help you, another person to help you make them, just to hold it in place. But what we started off with first was the big lengths of straw and soaking them in water so that they were really wet and flexible. And it's just a matter then of starting with the ring. So you start with this piece here, nearly like a hay rope, twisting it, and then after that then you start plaiting it and feeding them all up, and you decide like how long you want it to be, or how short you want it to be, how thick you want it to be, and then the design on top. So they're quite easy to make, and you could be as creative as you want with them. So you can see here, I love this one that we left the spray on it and all the seeds are still there, and when we dance, all the seeds are always falling out around the place. So I'm hoping I'm spreading some seeds around the place that oats might start popping up outside people's houses next year. But it's very hard to get oats these days because everybody that's growing them harvests them and then chops them up straight away to make bales of straw. So it's very seldom you'll find the big lengths, the big sheaths of straw to be able to make these. So I'm trying to encourage a few people across Leitrim, because apparently it's great land for growing them. You need wet, damp land. I'm encouraging them to grow the oats, just a small patch of them. You'd only need about maybe half a metre square to make a hat, and hopefully we'll have loads of straw boy hats and skirts and hay ropes then for it made. It's well worn now at this stage. You can see where this is all broken off from me dancing, but it was quite thick and full, and this is one of the I wore this on the Mummers project where I visited lots of people's houses, and everywhere I danced the corn or the oats were falling off on people's streets, so it's really nice. But you can see there, it's just again a hay rope that starts off here. That's the simple part of it, and you make it then to the width you want it to be for your waist, and then after that then you get the long sheets here, and you're just going to twist it round and plait it, and then you tie it with some string at the end just to hold it all in place. It's like plaiting your hair really. So that's the skirt, and when everybody was finished with them, if you were after calling to say someone's house, or if you were celebrating at a festival, the idea would be then, especially at the harvest festivals in August and September, everybody would take off their hats and their skirts and burn them to wish everybody good luck, and they would make fresh ones then again next year, because they're not made to last. They get worn down pretty quick.